Hey, everybody. Welcome to Andy's Licorice Talk. This is our 25th episode, and we would like you very much to please like our Facebook page and or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Our next guest is a very special guest all the way from Ireland, and someone we just calculated I've known very well for 28 years. So we'd like to introduce Michael Collins.
Hi and welcome.
Hi, Michael. Great to see you. Great to see you.
So it's great to see you like this.
Yes. Beautiful background. Michael just moved to Ireland. I didn't know that. So he's got the piano and it looks like a garden and a lot of light coming in. And
there's a lot of garden. Yeah. I mean, it's going to keep me busy. It's like 7 acres of it. So
wow. Well, so before we start, usually I mention how I know the guests. So anyway, Michael and I go all the way back, I think, to 1992. We played in a festival together in San Diego called the Mainly Mozart Festival, and we actually did a Mendelssohn concert piece together with the orchestra as soloists, and then also in Hong Kong we did it. And I don't know what else we did. Wagner, Siegfried's Idyll, and Strauss serenades and whatnot. And Michael pops in and out of Hong Kong every so often, and we have a meal here and there and have a good time. So I've known him forever, and we were just catching up a few minutes before. So anyway, welcome so much, Michael. We're gonna ask you right away, what have you been doing the last 9 months or so?
God, is it really that long? 9 months of this?
It depends how you do the math. I mean, in Hong Kong, we shut the halls. The halls became officially shut January 28th, but we were ahead of the curve. Everything sort of hit the fan, it seemed, in March worldwide.
Yeah.
So it's almost 9 months.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. I can't believe that it's gone this fast. I mean, they say as you get older, time just disappears. Well, that's true in one sense. But with this lockdown business, in and out of lockdown, it's gone really, really fast. So no time to really dwell on it, I suppose. I'm a great one to, believing, we should just think forward, never stay in the moment, think ahead, and let's look forward to better times, good times, and hope that our profession, gets back on track with live people in the hall. Certainly in this part of the world, it would be really a welcome thing. I mean, we just started getting people back in, and now we've gone into this kind of lockdown again where audiences are not allowed. So you just prepare for one thing, and then it's like having the rug pulled away under your feet, So that in that sense, it's quite demoralizing. I suppose I've been quite lucky. I've been sort of in and out making lots of CDs, which is something we've been able to do. So I've been doing lots of new things for recording and revisiting old things.
So tell us about. So what repertoire, for example, have you been recording?
Well, my first so-called concert after this March lockdown was at the Wigmore Hall, and sorry, I'm getting this totally wrong. Just before the lockdown, I did a recital at the Wigmore Hall with Stephen Huff, pianist, and we did both. It was part of his series, and he was focusing on Brahms chamber music, so we did both sonatas, and we said afterwards what a nice idea it would be to record them. Well, of course, you say these kind of things, and then it never happened. But then came the lockdown. We thought, well, why don't we do it? Because here's a fantastic opportunity to go ahead and do something like this. So we called the record company, and they said, what a marvelous idea. So we recorded both sonatas. So this would be my third attempt, commercial attempt of the Brahms sonatas. And this time paired with an arrangement of Brahms violin sonata, the A major violin sonata. So slightly different pairing. So the two clarinet sonatas and a violin sonata. So that was one thing. Then I did a trio disc, clarinet, viola, piano. I did another recital disc.
Who with?
Actually, my ex-wife, Isabel Van Kerven, and my regular pianist that I work with a lot, Michael McHale, Irish pianist. And so we did repertoire, the usual, so Mozart, Kegelstadt, Schumann, trio, some Bruch pieces, and Stravinsky Soldier's Tale, because she plays violin and viola, so that was lucky. And then Schubert Octet, and I then went to Sweden and made a disc conducting clarinet concerto, so that was novel for me. Conducting another clarinet player, he was the winner of this Geneva international competition, and I can never pronounce his surname, so please forgive me. Kevin
Spagnola?
Thank you, Spagnola. Yeah, wonderful player. So we did Weber 1, Rossini, Variations, Francais, and a couple of other things. So it was nice just to sort of keep the clarinet in the case and just wave my arms around.
Fantastic. Before we go on, we've got regards from Charlie Neidig and Ayako Oshima who are watching.
Hello, hi, nice to see you. I last saw them, one in, hold on, let me think, in Japan, the last local competition, and another one, another time was, this time just over a year ago, actually, in Munich at the ARD.
Right.
Yeah. Hello, and regards back.
And I saw a live recital of yours. I guess it was without audience, doing all the standards you at the Wigmore Hall. Was there Weber Grand Duo Concertante?
Oh yeah.
Schumann fantasy pieces or something like that.
Oh, that was from before lockdown. Yeah. Was it that one? Do you know, it's really odd you say about these 9 months. There's like 9 months rolled into sort of a whole lifetime somehow. I can't believe how fast it's gone, and yet, yesterday seems so far away, and yet 9 months ago seems only yesterday. It's really odd.
But that's Michael. That's what happens in horror. In everything in horror.
I know. I don't know when we come out of this finally. It's going to be very odd going back to full-time work.
By the way, John Brucier also says hello. He says, I guess he saw you in Belgium in 2018 or something. Is that possible?
Oh, at the Clarinet Fest
yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Great. So it's amazing. I mean, you've been really quite busy. And just tell us, you're up in Ireland. You're literally commuting. I mean, you told me it takes you an hour and a half door to door from your house to get to the Guildhall. Is that where you're teaching now?
Yeah, I've started some teaching at the Guildhalls in London, and I got a flight at 9, and I was 10:25 in the Guildhall. So it's really
amazing.
It's actually quicker for me to do that than living in my previous house and taking the train and commuting into London. So, and I've got the beauty of this, fresh air and such a peaceful lifestyle here. Very something I could, I had a bit of a scare with some health wise about 3.5 years ago. So it's made me sort of rethink how to organize my life, I suppose. And now my children are at an age where they've kind of left home. One's a pilot and the other one's at university. So I just thought, well, if I don't do this now, I never will. And I'm so glad I've done it. It's heaven. That's all I can say. Absolute heaven.
Wow. Good for you, Mike. Well, I guess, by the way, I mean, I think, obviously you had a very powerful experience not that long ago, but even this the whole COVID thing, I think is making a lot of people rethink, what's important in this world, and on so many different levels,
Absolutely. The scariest thing I'm hearing are the colleagues, orchestral colleagues, string players, I've heard that they're even selling their instruments and then trying to find a job in another profession. I mean, that's really, really sad. Sort of fallout from this, to see friends and colleagues sort of not being able to survive this pandemic, and I don't know, it does tear at the heartstrings, I must say. So let's hope we can all find a way forward. And but I also think that if there's something in us, that is really, really passionate, that you really believe in passionately, we will do our utmost to survive and find another way forward. And I do think that perhaps the profession will perhaps divert in different directions. Maybe it's almost like pressing a reset button, I suppose. I don't know. Perhaps it's wrong of me to say, but I do feel that our profession got perhaps a little bit out of hand. It was becoming so pop culture orientated, all about stardom and all about, earning vast amounts of money, that the real heart of what we do is, taking a slight, a back seat, if you like, which I found terribly sad. So maybe all of this will make us realize the values and make us realize what it's all about. I hope so, anyway.
No, as I said, I've been on a few of these Zoom meetings about, where's this all going, and how teaching online, and in the last or a couple of interviews back, we were talking about where this goes. But I don't think it's necessarily about who's the best or the opportunities. I think this could come down to who's the most dedicated, in the way that you were talking about. What is it really all about? And what I said, actually, one of these things was, maybe first ask yourself these two basic questions that, I don't think many people ask them. Why are you a musician? And what is the role of a musician? Just let's start with that, and then let's be adaptable and see where that all goes. But I think a lot of people, I mean, I've been there, they're just too busy trying to put food on the table, running from one thing to the other. They never actually take a step back and just say, why?
That's right. Yeah. It's just become so, when I had a chance, obviously moving home, and I was looking through some of the cardboard boxes full of stuff, and I found some old diaries, and I just looked through one. And of course, when you open a diary, it's sort of, it presses a button in your brain, you think, and you remember that occasion that otherwise you perhaps are not so clear in the memory about. And there was one particular day, and I looked at it, I thought, oh my God, did I really do that? And it was, I still, it makes me shudder with thinking, how ridiculous is it? I in the morning had to give a recital in the Wigmore Hall, which was for a BBC live thing. And then I ran across to the Queen Elizabeth Hall on the South Bank to play Hans Werner Henze's Miracle of the Rose, which is rather tricky sort of clarinet concerto, which doesn't have the outing it deserves. I mean, do you know the piece at all?
I don't know it, no.
No, I mean, it did it a lot in the 80s with him, actually, with Henze, and it was great. But anyway, so I went across and did that rehearsal, did the concert with the London Symphony Orchestra, this clarinet concerto by Henze, then ran across next door to the Royal Festival Hall to play the Mozart concerto with the Philharmonia Orchestra with Norrington that evening. 3 concerts like that, heavy duty ones in one day. And I suddenly thought, God, no wonder I had a bit of a health scare a couple of years ago, and so it really has made me think what it's all about, and what's, the values, true values, I suppose, and just to slow down and take life out of the fast lane for a bit and go back into the slow lane.
What do you mean back in the slow lane? I don't think you've ever been.
Well, try the slow lane anyway. Which has also been nice because there's plenty of time to reassess and practice and go back to basics.
But I mean, it's funny because I've always thought of you as having a pretty blessed life. Is it fair to say winning the BBC Young Artist Award? What is it? The Young Artist Award?
Young Musician of the Year is called.
Right. That kind of launched you. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I mean,
and how old are you? You a teenager? Or,
15.
16?
15, 16 on the cover.
Yeah.
And I was 16 and come to the final just. Yeah, I mean, and that's why I have this sort of slight, I don't know, bad feeling when I see youngsters being showcased in such a way, being used by the media and pushed into it's a natural recipe for disaster later on if they're not careful. I mean, I was very lucky that my teacher at that time, because I had a very strange sort of education, music education, because I had a lot of lessons from Thea King, and she was a lovely, lovely lady, a wonderful musician who, how can I say, she never found playing a clarinet easy, and she was the first to admit that. Such an open, wonderful lady, and she was a brilliant pianist as well, really. In fact, she was the first study pianist at the Royal College of Music, at the same time Gervais Depay was also first study pianist. They were both second study clarinet players, you know, Thea and Gervais, at the Royal College, and both studied with Frederick Thurston, who, of course, later Thea married. And so I sort of followed that tradition of piano playing, and the piano was a double third study for me. So I did a lot of piano playing, and in fact ended up doing some concerts with Thea where we'd swap. So she'd play the piano for me, and then I'd play the piano for her. So
wow.
Yeah, which is rather nice.
I was fortunate enough to have a dinner with her.
Yes.
Once a day, and I remember her talking about it. You know, it was very, very interesting. And I'd like you to talk a little bit more about her, because one of the things we love to do in the show is talk about the older generations, and she was certainly a figure, I think, in British clarinet playing. I mean, she has one of those things that you have, right? Or I don't know what not a knighthood, but or a damehood or whatever, but something of the British Empire or something.
Yeah.
I'm not well versed in all those things, but I know you have something like that, and she had something like that as well, right?
That's right. Yeah. As I said, she was just the most honest, in a way complicated person, because she really did find the clarinet a difficult thing to negotiate.
So Michael, is that can go in either direction sometimes as a teacher? Is it that she focused therefore less on technique and more on music because that wasn't her strength, or was it that she had to work so hard to overcome it that she was actually good at teaching technique?
I never experienced that side of it, because I suppose being when you're at that age, a whippersnapper, and I was out, enjoying suddenly all this, doing concerts all over the place. I suppose the technical part of things I didn't find a challenge at that age. So it wasn't, that didn't sort of worry me too much. So I remember the first time I had to play the Corigliano concerto, and I would have been about 18, I suppose. And it was with the BBC Symphony Orchestra, and I took it to her, and she went, whoa, whoa, whoa. She laughed, had a big, fun, wonderful laugh. She said, I couldn't even play the first line, so don't bring it to me.
But I like it, like the first line, like that's the easy part. It isn't exactly.
Very, very sweet. So, she did say, and I did take her up on that, her wise words, perhaps to go and have some lessons with someone who wasn't a clarinet player. And so I went and had some lessons with Jacqueline Dupre, which was probably one of the best things I could have done. Just take things like Brahms sonatas along to someone who didn't necessarily understand the clarinet in all its and all its problems that are associated with playing a clarinet. So all she was concerned was about how you get from A to B without all the bumps, which was brilliant, because it opened up one's mind to another aspects of thinking about these pieces from a non-clarinetist point of view, and I appreciated that very, very much.
Yeah, wow.
So it was a bit of a strange musical education as
Yeah,
such.
no, that's.
Then,
Hey, tell us a little bit about her, please, Jacqueline Dupre.
well, I went along obviously towards the end of her life when she was confined to a wheelchair, and some lessons were really inspiring when she was on amazing form, and sometimes I suppose because of the medicine she had to take, she could be quite sort of not with it. So it was a real mixture. But when it was on, it was full on. It was absolutely wonderful. So I did treasure those moments, as I treasured the moments with Thea, because it really was all about the music first, and she absolutely, I don't know, she made a point of it, quite rightly, I think. She spent more time on the clarinet and piano pieces discussing the piano parts rather than the clarinet parts, because of course so many of these pieces are come, once you understand what's going on behind you, in the piano part, our part suddenly, yes, of course, there's the answer, it's there. If you like, we're just another finger on the, on that piano part. It's an extension. So it makes musically understanding these pieces less of an issue later on. And it was, for me, it was the right thing to do. That's all I could say. I mean, I think other people would have disagreed and did disagree, wanted to go to a teacher that was going to pull them apart technically and embouchure and start again and so on. I suppose I've been a bit of a rebel in that way, and I was perhaps looking for something different. And maybe the secret behind that was my love of piano playing, which I still love, and so that was very important to me. And I think, if you like, the clarinet was an extension from the piano. So it's really hard to explain, except that I know what I did was I did for the right reasons. I felt within. And then, of course, at that age, I joined, in those days, they were very highly thought of ensembles, was the Nash Ensemble and the London Sinfonietta, back when I was 18 in 1980. So, if you like,
the London Sinfonietta was founded by our ex-music director, David Addison.
David Addison, yes, that's right. That's right. And the Nash Ensemble. So I took over from Anthony Pay, who played in both the ensembles, was founder member of both ensembles. So I took over from him, and particularly with the Nash Ensemble, the chamber music, it was such a learning curve, having to do all these major pieces in, the big halls of the world for the first time was quite something. You remember having to walk onto the Albert Hall stage and play Bartok contrasts, in the days when they had at the proms in the Albert Hall, Royal Albert Hall, to 5,000-6,000 people in this massive hall, just three of you on stage. It was quite scary, but life-affirming experience, and one that really set me up, I think, in a good way. But the thing that I was going to say was, after this competition, that's what I wanted to say, was that Thea really took control of me. She got hold of the reins, and kept me under control. And I had to show her every offer of a concert that came in. And she said, yeah, I think that's worth doing. No, throw that one out the window, sort of thing. So it was, she really helped. And that was...
It was interesting talking to her, because she sort of had a timeline of clarinet sound in England. Thurston obviously was someone she highly admired, and her ex-husband. And she said that his sound or his style had nothing to do with what came later, the
Absolutely right.
And now it kind of feels like it's going back again, so to speak.
Do you think? See, that's really interesting.
Back to Thurston.
Oh, yeah. Because I grew up, obviously, in my kind of patch of growing up as a musician, I was very much growing up with the sort of Gervais, Jack Brymer school of clarinet playing around me, and one that not that I didn't admire it. It had absolutely nothing to do with that. But as I said a few sentences ago, I was, I suppose, a bit of a rebel, and I just did my own thing. So I didn't conform with that particular school, and I don't think I really fall into that bracket of British clarinet playing. I remember on the top shelf in Thea's music room, she had all these old reel-to-reel tapes, the old spool tapes, you know, the old sort, and a lot of them were with Thurston. And I said, "Oh, please, you know, I'd love to listen to them." "Oh, no. She wouldn't never let me listen, and I don't know to this day. Obviously, I can't find out, and I don't know why. Obviously, I have heard him. I've got a record of him playing Brahms' quintet and sonatas, and absolutely not at all like the school of clarinet playing which came after that. Completely different. And I think you're quite right. It is sort of going in a way full circle, going back to that, you know, the sort of non-vibrato, more leaner way of playing, rather than the fatter 10-10 with vibrato style of clarinet playing.
You know, Mike, is it? I can't remember if you told me or it's just you know, mythology or something. But was it true when you were at the Royal College studying with her? Isn't that right? The Royal College of Music.
Yes.
Right. And so basically, you started getting so busy that you were missing so many classes, and they called you in, and they said, "Look, either you go to more classes and cut down the concerts, or you're out of here." And you said, "Well, you know, basically, you chose to be thrown out."
Yeah.
But hold on, and 3 months later, they invited you to be a faculty member. Is that right?
It's very, yeah. You're quite right. Exactly what happened was, I got a letter from the principal of the Royal College saying, you know, "You've been a naughty student. You haven't turned up. I've been traveling the world doing my own solo things as a member of the National Ensemble and as a member of the London Sinfonietta in my first year as a student at the Royal College of Music." So I had, you know, pretty full-on existence. But I did attend all my clarinet lessons. I did attend all my piano lessons. And occasionally I did my composition lessons, which was actually Joseph Horowitz.
Yes. And you were at the college while he was writing that.
I played my lessons of playing through the manuscript of the Sonatina, which was writing for Gervais, and he said, so the early parts of the thing I would play through and say, "Oh no, that's difficult. It's a bit awkward." But what he wanted to do was write a sort of rather sort of display piece, a showpiece that wasn't actually that difficult to play. So I kind of feel I have a small part to play in that piece. So no, that was a bit tricky. Then he'd rewrite it, you know.
Yeah. I think he's about he's about 94. Bless him. I mean, I actually studied the piece with him in London about 7 years ago. He wanted to make a few tweaks. So that's great, Mike. I remember you mentioning that. And so
I got a letter from the principal saying, you know, I haven't been attending all the lessons. So this was in my second year as a student, a full-time student, and therefore you should leave, basically throwing me out of the Royal College. I thought, fair enough, okay, so be it. I'll carry on my lessons privately, sort of thing, but carry on what I'm doing, you know, the work with the Nash and the London Sinfonietta and whatever. And then about 3 months later, I got a letter saying, would I go back as a professor in September? So I did. I went back, and it was the strangest thing having to then teach sort of my friends, you know, a couple of them. Yeah, that was an odd.
Yeah, and they made it through as opposed to you who got kicked out to boot. Right?
Yeah, I know. It was but I think in the 80s, you know, it was a very different time, and you had to be a really dedicated student and do everything they say, and then you could go out into the profession. There were one or two, three or four people at the Royal College that were having careers already, because some had, had won major competitions, international.
Barry Douglas, I think, was doing
it. Yeah. There was Catherine Stott as well. There was another pianist, Paul Coker. Well, there were also quite a few people that were making, having really big international careers, that had to, really decide whether they were going to not accept the concerts and be a full-time student, or it was very hard to do both. I don't think they didn't really want us to do both. We had to choose. So I just made that decision. I thought, well, I'm enjoying doing these concerts. I'm actually learning a lot, but playing with these wonderful musicians of the National Ensemble, truly wonderful musicians. So that for me was one of the biggest learning curves. I suppose you could say it was earn as you learn.
But what I also intrigued me about your younger years is, as I recall, weren't you were offered right away an orchestra job in Germany? Was it the Munich?
Well, yeah, it was the Deutsche, the radio orchestra, the
Bavarian Radio Orchestra, the one, right?
The what?
Bavarian Radio Orchestra. The
Berlin.
In Berlin. Okay, I thought it was.
I'll tell you what happened there. Is I just before I started the full-time study, I'd been playing with the National Youth Orchestra of Great Britain, and our last concert was at the Proms, BBC Proms, and with a very young, unknown conductor. Quite unknown in those days, was Riccardo Schai, and it was sort of quite a clarinety program. Francesca de Rimini, Tchaikovsky, Fairies Kiss, Stravinsky, Schumann Piano Concerto, and Strauss Don Juan. And anyway, at the end of the concert, I was summoned to his dressing room, thinking, I started shaking. I thought I'd done something wrong. I'm going to get a telling off, and he offered me these jobs. I thought, this is weird. And one was in La Scala, Milan, which he was conducting, and the other was this orchestra in Berlin. And the music director, this formidable lady called Ivy Dixon of the National Youth Orchestra, she kind of grabbed my arm and we said, "Thank you so much, Riccardo. Thank you," she said, and dragged me out of the room. She said, don't do them. Listen to me. Don't do them. It'll ruin you if you do them now." I said, "Oh, yes, Miss Dixon, okay." So I politely refused. And I think that was, in hindsight, I was absolutely the right thing to do. I mean, my God, could you imagine at 18 to sort of accept a job like that? No. I'm glad I did what I did.
But you did then go on to, before you went on to all this stuff, you did have a job with the Philharmonia. How long was that as a principal? So how long were you with them?
I did 11 years as principal. Yeah, I did. Yeah, but it was longer than I thought, actually. When I looked through my diaries recently, I thought, gosh, yes, it was 11 years. And they were really great years for me, I have to say. I mean, it was the time, of course, it's exactly what I was talking about earlier, about in the 80s and 90s, when there was so much work around and so much money around for classical music. And the Philharmonia in those days is endless. I mean, it had a nickname. It was called the Divorce Orchestra because it spent most of its time traveling. It was on tour all the time, so it was very, very difficult to have a grounded home life when the orchestra was touring non-stop. It was either touring, doing its regular London concerts, or recording. I mean, a typical day would be 10 to 1 rehearsal at the Royal Festival Hall, afternoon Abbey Road Studios, make a recording, 7:30 concert, the Royal Festival Hall, and sometimes going back to Abbey Road, doing another three-hour session after the concert. And then next day you could fly to Budapest, do a concert. I remember flying to Budapest, and it was thick fog at Heathrow, so we arrived about half an hour before the concert in Budapest. 2 Beethoven symphonies with Marzel, back on the bus, flew home on a charter plane, back to London, arrived 2 in the morning, and then on again at 9:30 at the festival hall. That kind of schedule. It was every day, maybe one day off a year, Christmas Day, if you were lucky. Even then, sometimes they would be working Christmas Day. And in fact, one day I did work on Christmas. I wasn't doing that, but on Christmas Day, I did something with the London Sinfonietta of recording Soldier's Tale in Abbey Road studio with Sting. It was his project. He wanted to make a recording Soldier's Tale. So it was Sting, Vanessa Redgrave as the devil, Ian McKellen as the narrator, and Sting was the soldier. So yeah.
By the way, John Ye was asking, because his music director now in Chicago is Muti. Who were your music directors?
Well, it was Muti then. Just as when I joined, Muti was leaving, and they accepted Giuseppe Sinopoli as music director, who was quite a controversial figure in those days, of course.
Right. Yeah. He had this. I only have her. So Sinopoli was your music director. Anyone else during your period?
Esa-Pekka Salonen.
Oh, Ed Salonen, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, we usually plug our guests, but I can't help it because he's a past guest. Wenzel Fuchs just got on. Says hello to both of us, and he's going to be playing Berlioz at 7 p.m. Berlin time tonight with Emmanuel Pahou and Daniel Barenboim, but no audio. Okay, no, but he's sending. So we'll past guests get a plug, and you will too, Mike. So that's it. And Harry Maki from the Sibelius Academy says hello to both as well. So I promise we're going to have a lot of people out of your past coming and saying hello, didn't I?
Yes, I did. Isn't that nice? What a lovely way of sort of meeting people and.
So, but sorry, I don't want to look. We're old friends, and I know you a little bit. So I just from what your threshold is. So you mentioned your health scare a few years ago, but as I recall. This is what I was going to say before, when I always thought of you as having this blessed life, but you've been struggling. You were basically born with half a stomach or something, right?
No, I had some of it removed when I was 7 weeks old. Yeah.
Okay, I exaggerated. When you were 7 weeks old.
Pretty close. But, so I mean, I've always had a dodgy stomach.
And it's amazing. I mean, the kind of life that you just described, and all that you were doing, but you've always had this sort of thing, and it must have. Is it hard to manage it? I mean, you've always had problems.
It's never really bothered me, but it was interesting. I was doing a concert in Ireland, of all places, June of 3.5 years ago, and I went out for a drink with a friend, and she's actually a GP, a doctor, and she said, "Oh, are you okay, Michael?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." She said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yeah, of course, absolutely fine." Anyway, she kept, and she was encouraging me to go and see my doctor. So I did that Monday. Something inside me just thought, "Oh, I'll go and see him." And he then sent me off to have some scans, and they immediately said, "You've kind of, got a rather large tumor in the colon." So within 5 days, I had this large operation in which they cut a bit out, resectioned it, and then a tiny bit had gone into the liver. So I had to have 6 months of chemotherapy, and I'm really proud because I didn't cancel one concert.
Wow.
I carried on throughout the whole thing. I didn't cancel one concert. I even went over, had one session of chemotherapy. They got on a plane to Melbourne and did 8 concerts with the Melbourne Symphony, playing and conducting. Came back, then plugged in again, had another dose of chemo. So,
and you're saying the chemotherapy actually makes you feel bad, right? Or weakens you, or
you know what? Yes, it does make you feel bad, but it's strength. Just the mind can do amazing things, and this goes right back to the beginning of our conversation. If you believe in something passionately, I mean, music's my life, and it's all I've ever been able to do. And so that really did take over. And the rest of it, okay, look, this is really silly, but I'll share it because it just shows you what can be done. During the chemotherapy, I suddenly thought, well, if I'm going to continue doing concerts, maybe I'm going to lose my hair. I don't, yeah. So what? Okay, I'll lose my hair. But they said you don't have to lose it now. You can have this thing called the ice cap, where they put this like a little hat on, really, really tight, and then plug you into this machine, and they freeze your scalp down to sort of like -5 or something. So it freezes the hair follicles, so the chemo just goes past and doesn't, so it doesn't attack the hair follicles. So I kept my hair throughout the whole treatment, but having this part of the treatment, this ice cap, was the most foul, vicious, painful experience I could possibly imagine. Yeah, I've got no idea. I mean, you can't help but scream and cry, and they were lovely. They give you a little tablet and this anti-nausea thing. So yeah, so I was able to cope with it. They said I was one of the few, very few, that was able to do the whole treatment with this cap thing and see it through. But you know what? During that thing, I put my earplugs in and listen to music, and it does take your mind off of so many of this pain. So in fact, I'm not saying it was a walk in the park, the whole thing, but I survived. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've lost my train of thought, Mike. Okay, well, I mean, I'm kind of jealous. I think a lot of us are jealous. I mean, you're 15, you win this competition, you have a teacher who stays away from technique, and it just came naturally to you, I guess. Technique.
Yeah.
But what do you say? Do you practice now? I mean, are you?
I've enjoyed it because with being in this situation now, it's, as I said earlier, it's given me a real chance to rethink about things and posture and all sorts of things, especially after the operation, because I noticed certain positions I'm in, it can pull a bit on the here. So I've got, I'm really concentrating on posture when I'm playing now, which is good. And of course, as we get older, things tend to change shape. So it's a good thing to think about these things. And practice is, I'm enjoying it so much now.
So I'd like to. So what do you practice? If you really want to get into the best shape of your life, what do you practice?
What am I practicing? Old and new. I'm just, I'm having a lot of fun with scales. In all its variations, as it were, and I'm loving them. It's really hard to put into words how I do it because I'm just using the moment, just thinking about it. Let's think what I can do with this and that. So I'm always sort of creating and trying to do something, just so mechanically I'm feeling on top of the world, so to speak. And then I'm just picking up lots of unusual pieces that I don't know, start, to learn those with a view, because I've got a lot of recordings coming up because I left, well, I haven't really left the company I'm with. I mean, I did about 25 CDs with Chandos. It was a lot. But before that, of course, I did my stuff with Deutsche Grammophon and some with Decca and EMI. And then I've did this stuff with Chandos. Wonderful opportunity to do, what I like, basically. So I've now moved myself to BIS, the Swedish company. So I'm revisiting a lot of the repertoire again. Can you believe it? So sometimes for the third time, which I don't mind, but some people think that's a bit daft. But it's, I've grown each decade, each part of my life. I've grown, and I have something different to say about them. So it's up to, if people want to hear it, how different they are, that's fine. But I'm just happy to. I love the recording studio. I'm at one of my happiest when I'm there. I find it a very enjoyable challenge. I know everything these days is so precise and so correct. I try to get to a position where I will do it as live as I possibly can, meaning one complete take, and then just leave. And if it, rather than dissect and dot the I's, cross the T's, and get into this state of perfection, which has nothing to do with for me anyway, the way we play in a concert. And it's not who I am in a concert. So I try to put myself in a concert situation in the recording studio, and then see what happens, and just if anything goes, of course, drastically wrong, then correct it. But if not, the bigger picture is fine for me. And
now, you said you're happy doing some of these things 3 times, and I know some of them. I mean, I guess it's probably 30-year gap or 25-year. Now here's my question. You don't mind, because you said you've developed and evolved. How do you feel looking back at the first one? In other words, that's still out there for print. Do you feel, are you equally proud of that, or do you kind of have regrets about the things? I mean, what's your kind of take on that?
Gosh, that's an interesting one. First of all, I don't listen to them, so I don't even remember what they're like. So I am approaching it from a sort of very fresh, I'm not having anything to do with my past performances in it. So it is the moment that matters. It's absolutely true to say I haven't listened to the old ones. They're there on the shelf, of course, but I don't listen to them. So I don't know how they compare to the from 30 years ago. I sometimes have pulled the CD out, or the vinyl, the LP, and I've seen a picture of myself on it. I'll put it straight back again.
So what projects do you have coming up? The clarinet wise, let's start with.
Clarinet wise, gosh, well, I've got. I'm not really allowed to say, but a couple of new pieces. I'm not allowed to concertos, which by some major composers, but I'm not.
No, you don't have to. Don't worry.
At the moment, which is nice. And I have this wonderful sort of residency at the Wigmore Hall, which I'm very thankful about, because it's my favourite hall to play, and it's such a beautiful hall. And every time I feel very special when I'm in this hall. I've also just taken up a job with the London Mozart Players as their artistic director, so which is partly clarinet, but partly I'm embarking, actually going to record all the Mozart symphonies, the complete, which is going to take up a lot of time. I'm re-recording the Mozart Clarinet Concerto again.
How many of those have you recorded?
This will be my 4th and last one.
Didn't you tell me someone left in their will for you to perform that at their funeral?
Yes, yeah, I did actually. With the Academy of St Martin's, yes, in Westminster Abbey, actually, of all places. Yeah, I'm going to record this Mozart, and I've decided to do it with the Philharmonia, because it's my old orchestra. I'm actually doing a lot of things in the future with them, and they're such. It's a completely different orchestra now, of course, but the players are so open to style. So of course they can play all the symphonic stuff. Actually, I've just done a CD that's come out, and I'm really proud of it. Of Vaughan Williams' 5th Symphony, and the sound they make. For me, this orchestra, it's all about sound, and I still, when they're on form, the sound they make it melts me. So I've decided to do the concerto one last time, and I'll do it with them, which will be, I hope, it'll be special for me anyway. I know. And then, yeah. So what else have I got?
I'm already tired, man. I can't believe you have more things to say.
Oh yeah, there's. Well, you see, the thing is, next year. No, hold on. In a year's time. I know it's 2022, but we're nearly 2021 already. I have an anniversary year, my 60th. So there's a lot of kind of special things that are going to happen then, which will be really nice. I'm going to look forward to that.
Great. Well, tell us a little bit about how you got into conducting, when you got in, and how that's going. I mean, it sounds like it's going pretty well.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that instrumentalists turn conductors. I don't know the percentage, but I think for a lot of people it happens by accident. In my case, I never even thought about it. I really didn't, until I did. I started really by doing play directing, and I suppose it goes back to our dear old Mozart Clarinet Concerto. And it's a piece. Obviously, if you're sort of touting the piece around the world with all sorts of different orchestras, you are reliant on the conductor to bring out the best, not only in the orchestra, but for the soloist. And I was just finding the bigger the conductor, I mean, bigger in the sense of stature and personality and reputation, the less satisfied I was feeling, because quite often they weren't, I've got to be so careful how I say this, quite often there wasn't enough care taken over rehearsing the piece the way perhaps I feel I wanted it to be. And it was, in some cases, just lucky if you're going to get a quick rehearsal, a quick run through on the day even. And I thought, there's more to life than this. So I started making a list of conductors I would work with, and then sort of a blacklist of conductors that I wouldn't. And I thought, well, this is really silly, because I can do this myself. And then at least I can get it the way I want it. And that's how it started. So I suddenly realized that, and I did it a lot with the Academy, St. Martin's on tours. And I would just stand there, of course, with an orchestra like that. I didn't have to wave my arms around in tuttis. They did it themselves, of course. So it was really easy. So that, in a way, was my first experience of feeling confident that I didn't need the middle person, so the conductor, to keep things on track. So once that happened, then I started taking on work where I would do the whole concert, overture, let's say the standard overture, concerto, symphony, with chamber orchestras. So it would be a Mozart symphony or a Beethoven symphony, whatever, and overture, classical concerto, Mozart, Weber, whatever. Then I'd branch out and start doing Copeland myself, directing, and then I did another one, Nielsen myself.
Finzi, I heard you do Finzi.
Yeah, that's quite easy to do yourself. And then I started thinking, well, what if I could do some bigger clarinet concertos? So this piece, which I kind of premiered by Benjamin Britten, his clarinet concerto that they discovered, it was a Benny Goodman. Do you know about this?
No.
Oh, I've recorded it twice, so have a listen. Yeah, it was Benny Goodman commissioned Benjamin Britten to write a clarinet concerto, and of course, and then Britten went to New York during the war, and he because he would refuse to fight in war, whatever. To cut a long story short, he came back by boat, and his manuscript was confiscated.
Huh.
They thought it was some kind of secret code. End of concerto. That was so. That was it. And then all these years later, I'm talking about a good 15 years ago now, probably 20. It was discovered in a cupboard somewhere, I think in Aldborough, where in Suffolk. And there was this manuscript of the Clarinet Concerto, first movement, complete. So I premiered it. It was actually, I think, with the London Symphony Orchestra, with Rostropovich. So that was a long time ago. And it was just one movement, so about 6 minutes. Really good piece, really, really. I think what a shame there's only one movement that exists. Anyway, Colin Matthews.
How long is the movement?
About 6 minutes.
Oh, 6 minutes, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then the composer, Colin Matthews, who was a great Benjamin Britten expert, there was a second movement which was in sketch form. He completed it, orchestrated it, completed the solo line, and then he discovered that there was a suite for 2 pianos written around the same time, which was also hadn't been performed, which contained themes from the first movement of the Clarinet Concerto. So he plucked out a solo line, orchestrated it, and made a third movement out of it. So instead of calling it the Clarinet Concerto by Benjamin Britten, it's called Movements of the Concerto by Benjamin Britten / Colin Matthews. First movement is pure Britten, complete, and the other 2, Colin Matthews, has sort of, finished the second movement and composed, if you like, or orchestrated a third movement and plucked out a solo line for it. It's a brilliant piece, quite a large orchestra. So I did that with the BBC Symphony Orchestra and played conduct myself. And, when you've got a symphony orchestra in front of you, and I thought this is going to be a challenge, with 4 trombones, tuba, harp, percussion, the whole works, and actually worked fine. So I'm just thinking, I'm perhaps going to re-record the Corigliano. I did it, not commercially, but the performance I did at the Proms with the BBC Symphony was with Slatkin, was put on CD, I think, as a live performance. But I thought I'm going to go in and record it in the studio and do it myself. That's going to be a big challenge, I have to say. But I think
you're going to conduct and play?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Because I did something that John Adams, he wrote this piece, Gnarly Buttons, for me. And I have to say, it doesn't matter. Whichever conductor I've played it with, it's been nothing short of a disaster. So I'm going to mention absolutely no names, but it's been near to disaster. The closest for it actually working has been when John's conducted himself. But it's one of these pieces that's really tricky to, because what you see, what you hear, and meaning what you see on the music and what you see here, it's quite hard to put together. It's not a walk in the park by any means. So I thought I'd have a go and do it myself. And John said it could never be done. Oh. And I did it with the BBC Symphony Orchestra on one rehearsal, and it worked.
Wow.
And I can't believe, so and the reason it works, now this is really interesting. The reason these things really do work is that, when it's like, being in an orchestra, it can sometimes, not for us wind players, but I think for a large string ensemble, can feel very cozy. That you're how can I say, you've got a conductor keeping the things under control, and it's easy just to play away. And suddenly there's no conductor. Every single player has got to take responsibility of making it work. And I suddenly saw all these players sit up from their chair and take responsibility. Back desks seconds of violas, taking responsibility to make it work. It's wonderful. It was a revelation. And that's why I've been able to do these larger clarinet concertos without a conductor. So moving from your question.
Yeah, but by the way, I just want to interrupt you that I believe something was going on in Beijing a few years ago with Curigliano, and he just brought along a score of the clarinet concerto, and you were there, and on 4 days' notice or less, I think he said, "Yeah, okay, I'll do it." And didn't you do that in Beijing?
I did it with, he was there. Yeah, about.
But like on no notice. I mean, you were there for doing something else or something like that.
No, I was there to play his piece.
Oh, well, what do you know? Okay, that's.
I was there to play his piece, but he bought, and I think he brought along a new score and new part.
That's what he was a guest on the show about 6-7 weeks ago. Talking new score, if you're interested, go back and
have a look.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was quite different visually, so from the old school. So suddenly I thought, seeing all these things, figures from the conductor bared no resemblance to my old part.
Right.
So I just had to use the new part. And when you get used to playing a piece for years and years from one particular, to suddenly have this new thing, it's like playing a new piece.
Yeah.
But if talking of, I think you might be mixing it up with the John Adams Gnarly Buttons, because that I had like 24 hours to learn.
Huh. Okay. Because I did, I knew that's how I heard it from, people who were there.
Oh, well, no, it might have been that. It was a Curigliano festival, I think, in Beijing.
Yeah.
And I remember it was sudden. There was a confusion over the parts. I had my old part, and when I turned up, it's all bared no resemblance to what was going on here. So anyway, we fixed it. Yeah, so I had to sort of, yeah.
Have you done the Ludoslavsky orchestrated dance preludes orchestrated version
of his preludes? Yeah. I did them with him.
Oh, great. Okay, because that's also a bit confusing. Yeah,
very precise, and he was wonderful because he learned his English from the BBC World Service. Good afternoon, Michael. How are you? And it was all very, and he would have suit and tie, and it was all very small and precise. So I did quite a lot with him, actually. The dance preludes, yeah. I was very lucky, and it was, when I think about it, to actually have worked with these composers, with Messiaen, I worked a lot with him as well, of course. So, which was amazing. So
did you play the quartet for him?
Yes, of course, absolutely. Yeah.
Any
actually, there's a video. I found an old video which I did at the Bath International Festival, and he was a featured composer, so he came along, and the BBC, it was for the radio, but it was also for TV, and Messiaen was obviously guest of honor thing, and he sat in the front row, and then on this video you see him, I mean, he literally was sitting 2 feet away from me when I was playing, and that was, it was pretty scary.
Any pearls of wisdom you want to share with us? Anything you can remember him saying?
No, he was actually very, what's the word? Non-judgmental about performances of his works. That the only thing he would suggest, 2 things were about to close your eyes and think of a rainbow. And so, for instance, playing the long note in the Abim, the long F sharp, try to think of all the colours and go through of the rainbow, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
So you go from the very, very soft to the very, very loud, and then having all these colours sparking out at you, and think of that rainbow. Yeah, that was one thing. And the other one was, don't don't be tempted to play with your heartbeat, meaning, because I think, we all know when it comes to that movement, it can feel a little anxious, and maybe the heartbeat is boom, 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 and that acts as a sort of metronome. He said, don't play with your heartbeat. He said, I just want it as slow as possible.
Wow.
So that was, yeah. But
No, those are great. I'm glad you shared them. That's great. Yeah, wonderful. Can you ever see yourself being a full-on conductor and maybe putting the clarinet aside?
No. I still love the clarinet more than ever, and find it a never-ending source of amazement and a challenge, if you like. I can't. It's not in me to stop. I love the conductor. I mean, I can see how people are bitten by the bug. This sense of grandeur, this sense of power. You're standing there in front of all these people, and it happens. I can't see myself. I'm not the sort of personality that's. I can't dictate to people. I mean, I can't. I just see everything as a larger form of chamber music, where I hope I can just inspire people that we make music together, rather than. I'm not going to say I want it this way. I want it this way. Blah blah blah. And it's not me, and I refuse to do it that way. I just see it as a larger form of chamber music, and when we're all in this together, and actually the results usually come out quite well. I like it. So some orchestras react differently. Some orchestras like to be told exactly what to do. Some respond in a way where my thoughts like this work really well. That's why this Vaughan Williams I'm so happy with, because I think number one I've learned as a conductor is respect. And it doesn't matter what kind of orchestra it is, whether it's an A-class orchestra, B-class orchestra, C-class orchestra. Respect. They're all there because they want to be there. They have a passion for playing music. So let's do the journey together, rather than I'm the big I am and here it is. This is how it goes. Absolutely no way, not for me. So I know that trying to be a full-time conductor, I just couldn't. I wouldn't want that. I still love the clarinet. Lots to do. I just feel I'm just entering a new era.
Well, Michael, other than the BBC, when you were 15, to the best of my knowledge, you didn't really do competitions much as a kid. Is that right or not?
No, I did one after that, which actually was more prestigious than the BBC one. Actually, it was the Leeds competition for instrumentalists. So it was alongside the piano competition. It was run by the Leeds International Piano Competition, but they had one for all the other instruments, but not piano. And I remember at the time, I mean, it was a fantastic people, Stephen Isserlis, Nigel Kennedy, they were all in it, taking part in it. And I was about 17, 18, I did it. And the finals were with the Philharmonia. Funny enough, and I played Weber 1, and I was fortunate enough to win that one. And that had a more impact for me internationally than the BBC competition, which was more of a national thing anyway. So the lead was really a big launching pad for me.
But now you've already mentioned earlier, and I believe I could be wrong. Recently-ish, you're now those were not clarinet competitions, so to speak, but you've been judging clarinet competitions.
Yeah, it's something
I didn't do as a kid, and I'm just very curious. What has your experience been, and what do you take from it? There must be so much
judging them.
Yeah, judging them. I mean, there's probably 100 different answers because I don't know how deep you want the big picture of what they are, what the good points, the bad points, what anything you take from it.
I suppose the bad point. Let's start with the bad points. I suppose
I know.
it concerns me that you've it. That, look, I didn't win an international. I didn't even go in for an international competition, but I've had a very nice existence without.
Right.
It's extremely possible to do that. I'm slightly concerned and nervous that there's a certain generation that they've got to win, they've got to succeed and get a prize at these competitions. And talking to them, I said, why? Well, what's it? Oh, it's any way of getting a solo career. I said, well, it's not. It's not. I mean, first of all, the passion for wanting to be a soloist, which isn't all it's cracked up to be if you're going to do that all your life, has got to come from within. It's not going to come from other people. It's got to come from you. You're the one that's got to have that passion to make it work. If you have that, then you can. I think it's really nice to do this gradually and go up the ladder, rather than start there and then, oh, if I win this competition, I'm going to be there. So the bad parts of these competitions is seeing this, the way a lot of competitors play in such a way in order to win. That disturbs me, I have to say, and I call it the clarinet competition way of playing the clarinet, which doesn't interest me, bores me.
How would you? What is the clarinet competition way of playing the clarinet?
I think 9 times out of 10, it's not about the music. They're not there at the service of the music. They're there to demonstrate what they can do, all the trickeries behind it, the circus acts of playing the clarinet. I think I'm sounding a bit like my old teacher now, Thea. But I do believe, of course, you've got to be able to play the notes and play them in such a way to make them work. But then please, please, please delve deeper into these works. I mean, to listen to them, playing the Brahms sonatas with no knowledge of what's going on around them, I find really disturbing, to be absolutely honest. And I think, if they're expecting to then win this competition and go out there and it's fine, you can go out there and entertain the public, but what are you doing it for? Then what are you doing it for? Are you doing it for the fame and the glory, or are you doing it for your own, really, your self musical satisfaction and hoping to get really down deep into the music? I find it worrying that it's a lot of its surface. It's all about fast, brilliant, and faster. And then let's circular prove, let's double tongue, and let's do every circus act and stand on one leg, and play it. It doesn't interest me at all. But I come from a background. I come from an era, I suppose, where that wasn't necessarily that it wasn't on the menu. What was on the menu was being an all-round musician, a rounded musician, and I find sometimes that's lacking in these competitions. I would love to see these wonderful players that are going in for these competitions to be more rounded before they enter them, because I think you'd see a very different, we would hear very different performances, rather than what I call the international style of clarinet playing performance. Gosh, that's very
wait. The international style of clarinet player, or the international style of, or the international competition style of clarinet playing?
More that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, because I've tried to keep away from them all my life. Been asked to sit on them, and I've kind of said, no, I'm busy. But I have done 3 or 4 of them recently. And it's always been, and I've come away with the same feeling, the same taste in my mouth of slightly dissatisfied, that I'm sure it's not that they can play, wanting them to play better, because you can't, because you couldn't wish for them to play better. But, they really are of at an age where I feel they should be more willing to explore deeper into what they're doing, really plummet the depth. Maybe things are handed to people now on a plate too easily with technology. It's all there, I same as you, I'm sure. I grew up, I listened to some LPs, but I couldn't click on a computer as I didn't know what a computer was. And listen live to someone playing, or just see how someone from New York was playing. I'd have to order the record of Stanley playing the Nielsen and wait a few weeks for the record to arrive. And you know what I mean? It was you had to really work for everything rather than having handed to you on a plate. And I think I feel sorry for this generation that do have everything handed to them on a plate. I think it's really rather nice to struggle and find your own way. I think that's so important as a musician, really. And then I think you really do find your own voice, and that's exciting. When you hear someone have their own voice. Actually, it's interesting. At the moment, I'm teaching a young Russian clarinet player. She's very young, like 15 or something. She's an incredible player. I mean, just incredible. I haven't heard playing like it. It's just, I should play anything. So I'm not talking about the clarinet, because she can do it all and every aspect of it. So we're talking about music, and I want to get in at this stage of development, so we're talking about Brahms symphonies and looking into the Brahms violin sonatas rather than the clarinet ones, just to open the mind, to broaden the whole experience outside of the clarinet world, which can become we can become a little perhaps obsessed by, I suppose. There's a much bigger world out there to explore and to learn from.
Well, Michael, I always ask this question at the end, but I'm not sure if you've answered it now. As a teacher, when you go to give someone like you who has taught around the world, and you've taught for many years in London and so forth, what is the direction that you would like to see people go? What do you gravitate to as a teacher? What's missing? But I have a feeling you've basically answered all that. Or is there anything you want to add?
No, in a way, yeah, it's interesting you asked that, because I have answered it, yes, and I will continue to do so. I'm going to continue my beliefs. Of course, if a student's going to come along and they need help in the technical department and sound production department, I'll do what I can to advise and to help. But I just feel my qualities as a teacher and what I can give out most to a student is the bigger picture of the clarinet. It's not just clarinet playing; it's the bigger picture of the work they're playing, learning, and to open up the channels for them to explore. So look, it's going back to, I can't help it, my roots, isn't it, with Thea, and if you're going to be playing Reger sonatas and Arnold Bach sonata or Machinsky, whatever the piece with piano, how can you play them if you don't know what's going on underneath? How can you really? And it disturbs me that they turn up. A lot of students turn up without that knowledge. So
Actually, but before I left this out, Harry Maki asked a question, and I'm not sure that I know this about you. He wanted to. Did you work with Hans Steinzer?
No.
No, he wanted a few words about him.
No,
Maybe
I didn't.
you up with Andrew Mariner or something.
You know, sorry?
Maybe he's mixing you up with Andrew
Ah,
Mariner.
no, yeah, no. I never did. No, as I said, I kind of kept well away from the clarinet fraternity. I had a
Yeah.
few lessons with Drucker when I was 14.
Really?
Yeah. I was with the Royal College Junior Department, and
Which,
we.
which, by the way, if my memory serves correct, you toured with them to Alice Tully Hall in New York and did the Mozart concerto, and that's the first time I actually heard. First time we were in the same room together. I was at the concert. I don't know if I
Oh,
ever.
really?
Yeah.
Because then we did. I went to the world, where they do the opening assembly of the United Nations. You know that. What's the name of that place in New York? Oh God, I should know.
Well, don't worry. Anyway, that's the one I was at.
This amazing hall to all these people. Yes, it was the same trip, but it was under the auspices of Isaac Stern, and he looked after about 5 of us, and he took us to the to the Met, to Bizet Carmen, and he took us to Carnegie Hall to see a concert, and he introduced me to Drucker. So I had some lessons
Wow.
with him, and I was actually going to go and study with him full time. That was my plan.
Huh.
And then the BBC thing came, and then the National Ensemble came, and the London Symphony, and so my path just went in a different direction completely.
Right.
Yeah.
So, well, I just want to finish up. You're a great person to ask this. I mean, first of all, we did discuss it at the beginning, but now you're going to have to be, you have to be more positive, Mike. Okay. So, what advice are you going to give to young people during this COVID period? Where the established people are, as you just mentioned. I mean, you have dear friends who are fine players, or really struggling. What are you going to tell to your students who are 20?
I tell them, I am extremely positive, and extremely positive about the future as well. Out of this, in the future, that they are going to be responsible for the next generation of making wonderful music. So see this blip as a period of time when you can really knuckle down and study hard without all the distractions of going to the pub and being, of course they can still do that, but I mean, if you know what I mean, they can still enjoy their life, of course, but they actually don't have all these distractions. So I said, use it wisely. And I can tell you, when we're over all this and it's all bouncing back in its full glory, the music, I said, we're going to need you all. I said, so I think encouragement all the way is really important. And every lesson I'm with these youngsters, I'm sort of encouraging them rather than saying, oh dear, maybe it's all going to be terrible and there aren't going to be any jobs for you. No, I mean, it'll bounce back. And so be positive, and let's look forward, and we're going to need them to take over our
Yeah, but I mean, I really like the bottom theme throughout this. You were also talking about some of the back desk string players just going on. The conductor is taking responsibility.
That's right.
That's what I've been hearing from you throughout this interview. Taking some responsibility.
And that's exactly just couple of minutes ago, and I was saying that about all the technology it's amazing. I mean, I'm not a technophobe by any means, but I find the technology absolutely incredible. But I'm concerned that it's at the expense of what we really should be feeling from within, and having this burning passion to succeed, to get better, to learn, rather than being force-fed by technology, if that makes sense. I'm so happy that I had an old-fashioned way of learning, because I think it was very grounded, and and it's something I can take with me all my life. And that's what I'm trying to encourage now, is that use this opportunity. Don't use technology, just use the opportunity to really find out who you are as a musician, and hope that will keep that fire, that passion within, that keep the fire burning brightly.
So finally, what would you say to the 20-year-old Michael Collins, knowing what you know now? Anything you would you would advise him, or change or not change, or put his mind at ease or not at ease?
I would say slow down. You've got more time than you think to do everything you want to. I suppose I just felt that here it was happening. I was just doing it all. And in hindsight, if I could turn the clock back, I would say just slow down. And I suppose it's, going along the road like this. And I would say now, yes, you can still go along that road, but look this side, look that side, and take in the scenery. There's a lot there. That's what I would do now. And if I could turn the clock back, I wish I could have time to look left and right and see the wonderful scenery.
Beautiful. And you have terrific scenery behind you, Mike. I'm so happy that you.
That's why I'm doing this now.
He just moved to Ireland, and then he's enjoying life a little bit more, I think, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Fantastic, Michael. It's so great to catch up with you. And
you looking so well. I hope it's not going to be too long. It'd be wonderful to see you in Hong Kong and have some of that lovely food. You always educate me when it comes to cuisine.
we have a couple of restaurants there, a couple of good restaurants. So. Fantastic, Mike. I do hope we get to meet each other live sooner rather than later. Very encouraging words, and with depth, believable words. You sold me. You sold me, rather than just the Band-Aid. I'm thinking, yeah, this is okay. Maybe I'm going to follow his advice, even though I'm already 21. I'm already a year older. Very good. One last thing. Oh yeah, Lorenzo, make a quick appearance. I see you there. Hi, Lorenzo.
Hi.
Hi, Michael.
Yeah, I've seen you going in and out, but you would have gotten a kick out of Michael was talking about life in the Philharmonia, in the London orchestras.
I was following everything from my airport.
Any quick thing? Those of you who don't know, Lorenzo was in the London Symphony for 8 years, and a fairly accurate description of life there as a London musician.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, I actually remember all those days.
Yeah.
Flying, coming back, playing.
Yeah. Some with positive thoughts and sometimes with horror.
But I do remember one incredible concert with Michael actually playing and conducting with the City Chamber of London. Do you remember City of London in Cadogan Hall? Doing ebony concerts and prelude, fugue and riff, and Rhapsody in Blue for 16 violins, 6 violins, the big band version. Amazing. That was such an incredible.
Yes, I remember that now. It's quite an ordeal.
Yeah.
It just shows what can be done.
Yeah,
great man.
So nice encore to the interview. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you next week. Michael, take care. Follow your own advice. Slow down.
I am.
Very good.
Thank
Lorenzo, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Beautiful.